What is up, everyone? In this video I want to talk about my first impressions on the video game No Man's Sky. This is a video game that has been highly anticipated, and there's been a lot of gameplay footage being released. And let me first off start with what this game is for people who don't know about it. So this game is supposedly going to take a quantum leap ahead of what every other video game has ever done by literally generating an entire universe for you to explore. Now, what this means is that there will be something like 1 quintillion planets, more planets than you could ever explore, even if you explored one planet per second. By the time you even got a fraction of the planets done, you would be dead. That's how vast this universe is. And so there's star systems and planets and so forth, and it's an incredible thing. And apparently it's very fast, and there's no load time at all because it's generated on the fly. And I think this is, a really cool way of doing it, so that it's not very laggy. And they basically do this by generating the planet that you land on immediately before landing on it. So it's not actually generating all those planets at once. It's just generating the ones that you come across one by one. Similar to how websites work. If you actually go to a website, they don't load the entire website initially. They only load the part that you see, which is like the upper half of the website. And then when you scroll down, it gradually loads the rest of it. And that pretty much speeds up the website load time. So it's an incredible video game, and there's certain things I don't like about it, and there's certain things I think are incredible about it. The most incredible thing is that it's unique. This level of thing has not really been done. There's definitely been similar things done where you have a vast land that you could explore and play in. A great example are multiplayer online games like RuneScape or World of Warcraft, where these lands are really vast, but it's all on one planet. It's all on one country or one continent or whatever else. This one takes a new approach by literally generating an entire universe, and what this spells is really the future for video games and the future of human potential. Not only in video game form, but in all other forms of technology that we have yet to even fathom or consider or imagine. We're just getting started. We're developing virtual technology. We have the Oculus Rift coming, and we have these, entire universes that are being generated now. It's really incredible, and it kind of tells you that who knows what the future will hold. It makes me a tiny bit jealous about the kids who will be born 1,000 years from now or 10,000 years from now, and all the stuff that they will have. But at the same time, I've read a lot of self-development books, and that sort of stuff is not, healthy. You have to be, very grateful for what you have. And, also I've read a lot of books on the science of happiness, and honestly, all of that, extra technological stuff, that luxury, it doesn't necessarily mean that these people will be happier. Quite frankly, they'll most likely, take everything for granted. I mean, just look at people 50 years ago and compare them to the kids nowadays. Kids nowadays, they're getting stuff that I would die for when I was a kid. iPhones, internet access, all this stuff, and they're literally taking it for granted. Computers, YouTube, all this stuff wasn't there 50 years ago. So this is a constant process of taking things for granted. So let me go and talk about the things that I don't necessarily like about the video game. Now, I think it's an incredible game. It's quite amazing, and I think it's the first revolutionary frontier in a very specific type of, explore the universe type video game that might lead to numerous other types of video games based off of this. It is revolutionary in a way, and it's apparently been built by a small team of 10 developers rather than what most video games need, which are hundreds of different developers to create a video game. And it's just really incredible, the whole process of how they did it. What I don't like about it, though, is that with No Man's Sky, the problem is that it just seems to be a little bit too gimmicky, and it's a little bit of a simplistic view of what the universe is like out there. And what I mean by that is, it kind of is simply this thing where you go to a new planet, you explore a new planet, and this planet will have all sorts of different wildlife and creatures that are very strange. Some with long necks, some with horns, some with antlers, some with very weird type of characteristics. And that's basically the whole game. You can kill the animals, you can harvest minerals, and I'm going to give it to them. They did a lot of detailed work. They invented their own elements. They have specific different atmospheric compositions for the atmosphere. They have different types of animals, randomly generated new types of animals on each planet, all sorts of awesome high-tech stuff. But at the same time, it's not a realistic view of the universe, just based off my knowledge on biology, natural selection, and other areas of the universe. Now, I'm not some type of expert, but it's just like a lot of things are not really addressed. For instance, like, first off, if you go down to a planet, like, there's so many different factors that are at play. You don't know what this planet is at. And especially with the universe that's billions of years old, you will get most likely civilizations that are tens of thousands of years, if not millions of years ahead of you. And if you look at the progression of technology, it's rising exponentially every single year. We are literally improving as a civilization almost exponentially. And you can only guess what, 1,000 or 10,000 years of a head start would do for civilization. So, you could easily land on a planet where these people are almost like superhuman beings, or just like they can think and react and comprehend things 10,000 times faster than you do, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, there's all sorts of weird things in terms of what aliens would be like that would probably make them more different than any species that you've ever experienced on Earth. And I mean, you just need to look at the species on Earth to really see the diversity there. I mean, you get the standard animals, zebras, giraffes, all those stuff, and might I say, even those animals are very, very different. But you get all sorts of different, groups of animals and organisms, from amoeba to protozoa to all sorts of weird stuff that are, microscopic and beyond, most people's understanding. And you get viruses and diseases and infections and all sorts of stuff. And to simply just go down to a planet and assume everything's all fine and dandy, it seems to be fairly simplistic in the sense that, you arrive on every single planet and you don't succumb to any type of disease. And let me tell you, there's thousands of different types of diseases with very bizarre symptoms. And, as far as animals go, they would be far beyond what I've seen in terms of the animal diversity I've seen in this video game. For me, from what I've seen in this video game, all the animals seem to be just variations of what you would expect. Oh, let's make this one a deer with a long neck. Oh, rather than antlers, let's have horns on this person. Or, let's throw in a few insects there. There's so much more diversity there, just go wild with it, like tentacles, flying things, and really weird systems, and I would say weird types of laws that govern different planets because of how different they are. So, long story short, I feel like the game could be in certain ways underwhelming or disappointing in the sense that, there's millions of people who are hyped to buy it, but when it finally comes out, they're going to be bored after maybe a day, a week, 2 weeks of simply exploring new planets, you know, and saying, oh, this is cool. This is a slightly different terrain. Oh, this is cool. It's a very windy, dusty planet. There's a lot less, of this chemical or element in the atmosphere. Oh, cool. That's a weird animal. And, after a while, it will get boring. And I would say, there's a lot more to the game than that, but I think I hope you don't take this, if any of the developers are watching this, as me panning the game. I would take it as constructive criticism for future editions or variations to improve the game on. You know, from what I can tell, watching the footage I've seen, it all seems like it's a little bit too simplistic in certain ways. If you go into the ocean, guess what? You see a bunch of fish that are, maybe alien in certain ways, but at the end of the day, very similar to the most standard type of fish someone who has no knowledge on biology of would see. And then, if you go on the land, from what I can see, it's just very basic variations of different types of animals, from kangaroos to dinosaurs. It simply seems to me like they did some type of randomizer where they mixed, different types of standard animal body parts, from dinosaurs to kangaroos to horses. And, I do think that there's so much more potential on board for this game. And I think, if they bring in a few, experts in these areas, like a biologist, a virologist, get them get them to consult for free. Sometimes they will do it for free. The person who helps a lot on the TV show The Big Bang Theory, which requires a lot of science, they had a highly acclaimed professor from a university come in to consult on a weekly basis for free, to help with material on that show. So they can do the same thing with this game, and I think there's so much more at play here if you just got a little bit of a deeper understanding of science and everything else. For instance, there's a physicist called Michio Kaku, and one of the things he says is, if there is a highly advanced civilization out there, then they would look to Earth and Earthlings and humans as ants. And so, if you're driving on a super highway, would you ever stop and, go down to the ants and kneel before them and say, I bring you gifted technology. I bring you great advancements in technology, or would you step on a few? And the point of that whole analogy was, for him to pretty much explain why there hasn't been any alien contact, possibly. And more so, I'm using that analogy or story to illustrate that I think there's tremendous more potential for this game. It seems to be a very explorative nature-based game, and it almost seems to be assuming that every planet that they visit is pretty much like a nature reserve, or like a zoo or a safari of some type, with maybe like a few like high-tech things for you to race your spaceship around, or land your spaceship, and that's all fine and dandy. But I think a more realistic view, and I would say more exciting, although harder to program, version of a real universe would be, landing on a universe and not knowing, or landing on a planet and not knowing what to expect. You can literally land on this planet and there's, the whole thing is tsunamis and storms and tornadoes, and there's no land anywhere, and just waves, and 1,000-foot waves, and typhoons and whirlpools and lightning, and you can be hit by the lightning and be sunk into the ocean, or you can literally go down onto a planet, and guess what? You look around and you see, you know, basically that this whole planet is inhabited by civilization much more advanced than you. And you land and you open the door, and all these people are, they've like transcended in certain ways or whatever else, and they're just like, oh yeah, we knew you were coming, we know who you are, and like they just let you do your thing because like they're on some like super level because they're millions of years ahead of you in technology. All sorts of weird, crazy stuff happening. Fourth dimensional beings. However, based off the footage of this game, it just seems to be like a Safari Explorer type thing where you can like mine minerals and stuff like that. And I think that's very fun, and I'm excited that this game has so much hype and anticipation. But I do think that there's so much more potential, and I have plenty of faith that these ideas that I have are nothing new, and if no one takes my advice, someone else will come up with this stuff, and one day, whether it's in 10 years or 50 years or 100 years, there will be a video game describing all the crap I have said, probably with the Oculus Rift or whatever type of virtual reality headset is now dominating the market, and it would just be an incredible game. And that, of course, will lead to other problems like, little spoiled teenage boys who, escape the real world into the game. And that's not healthy in a lot of ways. I do think, being thankful for the real world and sticking with it is also very important. But we'll get to that when we get to that. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching. Peace.